We're creeping, we're crazy, and we are getting into the Mind of Madness. I'm back. Volume 2, Issue 1. The much loved strategy show where I share my off the cuff musings and about the game of Heroclix, especially when it comes to competitive play and where my focus is and things I'm trying out and ideas I'm coming up with or having discussions about. It's where we generally, what we do on Into the Mind of Madness. And all of this is in prep for the upcoming tournament season. So U.S. Nationals, we know, is coming up around Origins. And generally, after that, everybody else has their Nationals. And we're not sure when the Canadian Nationals is. But that's the tournament I'm planning for right now. That's how far into the future I'm looking. Now, a couple important things as far as my planning steps are concerned. The first thing that's worth noting, I have no intention of looking at the current modern meta. Right now, my eyes are forward to July. Now, what does this mean? This means that certain things may come to fruition when we enter that time around Black Panther. Black Panther and the Illuminati is going to be out just before U.S. Nationals. So a lot of our musings as we go up to that in the second volume here will change. Ideas will change. We will try new figures with new ideas. And what we will do is I will share either the build process or my ideas behind builds or things I have discussed with other players. And I will try to focus on one topic before we get to the build itself. And we'll talk about other topics, and then we'll be like, okay, Jason, so what are you thinking of at the current moment? Sometimes I'm locked in on a build for a period of time, and I will share my test results with you guys. All of this kind of leading up to what it is. So I'm just gonna lower some of the amount of light reflection we're getting. I need to get new glasses. I need reflection free because you might as well be looking at my monitors sometimes here. All of that aside, let's start this volume, this season, second season, early, and let's start talking about the current state of the metagame. Now, I'm going to talk about the current state of the metagame as it stands right now, but I'll also look into what things may be affected for the future. So, right now, the meta is divided into a number of archetypes. Now, for those of you familiar with other games, I will kind of just explain the way the greater Heroclix community kind of looks at our archetypes is a little different than what you'd expect from, let's say, Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering is down to 3 archetypes. Aggression, control, and combo. And sorry, I'm about to bore people with some more Magic talk, but this is just to give everybody a streamlined idea. So when you talk about those 3 things, aggro means aggression. I am attacking your face, and your face must die. Control is stop what you're doing. I'll get to your face, but just everything you're doing is wrong, and I want you to know this. Ghostbusters 2 for anybody who missed that. And then combo is just hold on a second. No. I'm playing. Don't worry. They'll do something and it'll just occur. Now, in Heroclix, we don't have that. Those 3 distinctions necessarily. What we end up getting individualized by is how we build our teams and how the teams function. And ultimately, grand scale, there's not much in the way of control in this game. Because the way this game works is a stop board, courtesy of the game of Heroclix, has no answers. As a result, it's generally not accepted. A prime example is in previous metagames, there was a figure called Felix Faust, and he had an effect that had a 20-sided die, and if certain things showed up on that 20-sided die, your opponent wasn't allowed to do anything for a turn. And the odds were like at a good 50-50. And this, at first it affected across the board, and then it affected within 7 squares, and all of these things, like when you go down the scale of things, they didn't do enough to it. Anyway, so generally you don't get control in Heroclix. And then as well, combo or an infinite combination of things doesn't generally occur. So we're actually looking at varying degrees of aggression and how we actually support our aggression. This is I often compare the competitive realm of Magic to Heroclix, and there are major differences between the game. I fully recognize that, but there's certain things that we kind of accept and don't accept, and then I use both as a comparison to kind of get to my point. And my point today is that there are a number of archetypes that currently exist in the game of Heroclix, and the current state has actually removed one of our familiar archetypes. I say this because generally in certain environments there will be give and take when you come up to certain types of matchups, and certain teams will have less ideal matchups, and that's where a good player takes that less ideal matchup and can still work around it, get around that corner of it. And the general case is even the worst matchups in a really strong environment could probably sit at like a 70-30, 60-40. And in the current, one of the archetypes actually, and this is a standard accepted archetype that has in the past done well, and if not middle of the road, maybe B tier or not quite A tier. I'm not going to use the S tier. That's Smash Brothers. We don't have enough things to talk about with that. So A tier, B tier, C tier, everything else. So as it stands, what used to be, we'd say high B, low A tier, being the Swarm Bystander based Colossal Retaliation team. There were versions of it that did fairly well. And while there are often teams that have a lot of Retaliators, they don't necessarily outright win because they're very subject to certain power sets. An example is if you have a large grouping of Colossals all sitting in your starting area and somebody is capable of getting a good strong energy explosion off on you, well, it was a good day. Or they're able to walk a Shredder next to you. I mean, like, these things died, just not necessarily all the time. They usually sat back and let the other teams. And I understand they're very low points, very high effect, and then you just end up losing them. They're very sacrificial lamb sort of situations, kind of like grenades. They're big old hand grenades, very easy to target. So teams like this have actually been edged out in the sense that certain archetypes render them completely unplayable. So because one or two of the A tier teams and then one specifically A tier archetype has actually just completely edged Swarm Bystander teams right down to like the D tier at this point. While the teams are still super effective, we don't have a 60-40 matchup in this case. We have a like 95-5 matchup kind of situation. And what I'm talking about, of course, is what I'm going to call, because there's not just one figure who does it, but I'm going to call it the the battering ram of doom, we'll call it. And the reason we'll call it the battering ram of doom is it just keeps hitting you continuously. The speed bag team, we'll call it. We'll call it the speed bag teams. Now, several figures have kind of rendered themselves the kings of the speed bag. And there's one reigning king who we say goodbye to in July. We have two brand new versions, though. One is super strong and super point effective, while the other is okay. Okay, so we're gonna go to HC Realms and we're gonna look at the three figures that make up this archetype right now. And I just realized that this needs a quick change to this. Right? No, this doesn't work. This needs to be this. Haha! Victory. Okay. Where were we? All right, so we're going to talk about the speed bag very quickly and the things that make it work. The Hawkeye version, what people have been doing is they've been winning map with Hawkeye and a large number of Colossal Retaliators, and he's also generally joined by Star Fox. Now, and the Colossal Retaliators in this case will be giant girls in varying forms. The Fast Forces one and the Uncommon one from Avengers Infinity. And what this does is you win map, so you get to choose your map 9 times out of 10, we'll say. There's matchups where you might lose map. So 9 times out of 10 you win map. And then what ends up happening is Hawkeye has this special movement power, rapid fire trick shot. Hawkeye can use running shot each time he hits an opposing character with a ranged attack. After action resolve, he can use running shot again as a free action, but only to target a character that was an attack this turn. Now, we add to this character Proxima Midnight Spear, which whenever he hits a character, they become immobilized. So, or he deals an additional penetrating damage. So what'll happen is a Hawkeye will attack all the Colossal Retaliators and kill them. And in a lot of cases as well, what are they called? Bystanders. Now, assuming with his precision strike, they haven't either made a shape change, and even the shape change isn't going to necessarily stop them. They haven't made a roll of a 6 on a super senses. Hawkeye is going to kill a lot of single click characters, which are what Retaliators are made up of and Bystanders are made up of. And then your opponent just kind of sit there, left there, going, well, that happened. Now what? And they have actually lost a good portion of their team in this case. Now, I've managed to survive the Hawkeye onslaught with my teams. He is not as scary as our another friend that we're going to talk about. And one of the things that makes this fully effective is Star Fox, because Star Fox has that +2 perplex. In addition to which, you've got 5 theme probs, I guarantee it, with your Avengers theme team because it's a named theme team. So you're very, very capable with this team of just going. And it's super awesome. There's nothing wrong. It's super effective. It's super awesome. And it does have like a 70-30 matchup with a lot of these bystanders. Where it kind of loses out is an example of the bystander heavy, retaliator heavy teams is the monster team, which can often compete with it in the way of map rolls. So it can potentially win a map against it. It's not, we're talking again in the 60-40, 70-30 kind of situation. And then what'll end up happening is your Hawkeye is going to get retaliated. And if you look at this dial, this Hawkeye doesn't want to get retaliated on at all. And if he gets retaliated on like by a Groot, he's going to get hit. It's just bad news for you. He's generally 9 times out of 10 going to get hit. And then you're staring down a walking wood. So if you're not dead yet, you're going to be. This is, of course, assuming you haven't, there's a lot of assumptions being made. And that's why you kind of have options against this team. And so it doesn't completely annihilate, nullify them. It does give them a hard time. But where he's been edged out a little bit has been the Vulture. Now, the Vulture is a little bit more stringent on his effect. But what has happened is, in the world of competitive Heroclix gaming, we take things and we mess with them. We mess with them hard. And what ended up happening is the first assumption when you see a Heroclix figure is, what does he look like with the rule of 3? Right? What does a figure look like when you say rule of 3, what do his stats look like? Well, Vulture looks like a 14 attack, 6 damage. And that previous Hawkeye, he's got a 14 attack, 5 damage, right? So, Vulture's looking good. So what can I do on top of this? Now, Vulture's 50 points. So let's get up to close to the points on Hawkeye. Hawkeye is 65 points. Well, for 10 points, I can add Doc Ock's arms. Now, Dr. Octopus's arms, for the uninitiated, we'll very quickly look at this. I'll stare a little bit harder at newer, brand spanking new stuff, and just mention in passing certain things. But this is an important, it's a 10-point heavy object, indestructible, so you can't go away and shoot it. And its effect is Giant Reach, 2, and Flurry, as well as improved movement, elevated hindering. That last part, not a big deal. Vulture flies. But Giant Reach and Flurry. Now, Vulture has a trait, and I just tried to click on the wrong thing. You're going to see me do this a lot as I get used to OBS. He's got a special movement power. Gives him charge and sidestep. And as well, when he uses sidestep on a 4-6, he can use sidestep again. And then he's got this trait, time to make my getaway. When Vulture KOs a character, after resolutions, he can use charge at no cost, and he ignores characters for movement. So what ends up happening with the Vulture is, let's say we got the same game state as with a bunch of bystanders, and a bunch of characters. Now all of these characters have to attack one click, right? So if the vulture so much as hits them with a 14 attack, very likely, he's gonna kill them. Okay, and this is just the first attack. Now because of the way powers similar to his trait work, when you kill a thing, you can charge once, but you haven't resolved the action yet. You still have a second attack. So you make the second attack, and let's say you're in a position where you can kill a second thing. Well, now you can charge twice at the resolution of the action. So we're still resolving our action. I use charge, and let's say I went crazy and increased my move by 3. So I charge 8. Right? Or even though I charge 5 to the next thing that I can flurry now. So I flurry, and let's say this is a 5-click figure that we're now attacking. Well, I attack it once. Okay, so now I've killed it because I'm going for +3 attack, +3 damage, or I'm doing extra attack and extra damage, right? So now I've killed another thing, and now charge is now allowed to be used after the resolutions of this action. In addition to which, I still haven't made my second attack, and I still have another charge to resolve from the previous charge. So the vulture can actually end up, if he kills a bunch of little things, have multiple attempts at charge locked in and ready to go until you get to that last big thing, that big, meaty, big dude. And I'm going to kill it with a charge and flurry. Okay, that didn't work. Then I'm going to charge and flurry again, and then I'm going to you see where this is going, right? It's going into levels of disturbingness. So if you're playing one of these bystander heavy swarm teams, this guy alone with the stat bonus, and this vulture with this object is 60 points to your team. You have 240 points with which to build with, and certain versions will maximize your perplex with multiple big Tonys. With one version, Dustin Cedar played, had Star Fox and Al Jordan. That's only 170 points, right? So those two, you still have 70 points left over. You can throw on a couple big Tonys that you got +3 on 2 stats minimum. Like, bonkers. This is absolutely out of control. How strong this is. And this figure here has made a lot of my traditional swarm bystander teams, just rendered them useless. At least for forward-looking events. Now, this is without Black Panther and the Illuminati. So, and then next up, we have the Murder Machine, who is kind of a Vulture light. And the fact that Vulture can use charge after he kills a thing, whereas the Alfred Protocol gives him knockback, and when Murder Machine KOs an opposing character, and note, if he uses the knockback to kill a thing, then that's not going to count as him killing a thing. But anyway, if he KOs a dude, he can make an attack after resolutions. So similar to the Vulture, not quite on the same level, because he's allowed to make an attack. Now, there's ways of making this work. A little bit of TK, a little bit of proper positioning, and we're looking at the 200-point version of this. A little bit of TK, a little bit of Mjolnir maybe. You go and you shoot, you kill a guy. If I've got Mjolnir, I look at my board state. I can make either a close attack or just make another range attack, and then make another range attack if I kill another thing, make another range attack if I kill a thing. Murder Machine's cool, but not as rough as the Vulture. So, all of these kind of just you turn your team into a speed bag, right? Now, there are teams that can survive this, and there are strategies that can work against this. Because, hey, Semperclick, the T-Sphere. Give me a second. I got to kind of go through other archetypes. I will. Let's just look at it now. So that's from Rebirth, if I remember correctly, and the T-Sphere comes from Mr. Terrific. And he says, T-Sphere is generated, blah, 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 blah. Precision Strike. T-Sphere, what does this do? It's autonomous, which is cool. The characters don't have to break away from T-Sphere. Well, okay. Perplex, but only to target the character that generated this bystander. And then even people have been also talking about the use of the other Mr. Terrific, the one that's +1, or makes your team the rule of 1. What's what sucks about his effect is that if I start by giving him +3 to his stats, okay, so there's +3 to stats, but the best I get is +1. But let's say I charge my way to your Mr. Terrific and I kill him. Now, once the Mr. Terrific is dead, that rule of 1 is gone. And now my rule of 3 is back. And I've already pumped the things past the rule of 1. So then everything kind of comes back to normal. That's my understanding of how that would work. But I have to double check to be sure unless they've changed some kind of wording. It's always been kind of how the rule of 3s works is if I give a +4, I get 3. But if you -1, I still get +3 because I went +4, and it's just not +3 beyond that initial stat. All right, so where were we? Okay, so I was coming to here just to kind of set myself up. Okay, so that's an archetype. That's the archetype that turns your team into a speed bag, especially if you have a lot of numbers. If you're able to manipulate that, oh boy. Oh man, is that rough. But we are not without an answer to it. Now, this answer isn't guaranteed. Let's just go. That's right. This guy's back. This guy's back in the conversation. The Unimind. Nobody wants to talk about this guy. Where do we start with this? He's hard to kill. And if you choose powers correctly, you can really kind of turn the game back in your favor from this. So what you can do is, with a 300-point Unimind on his own, the Vulture's not going to kill him on the attack, which means the Unimind's capable of making a good, solid back attack. Now, there are things you can do with the Unimind to kind of mitigate the effects of our friend the Vulture. You can choose Super Senses, which really slows down how much damage you can take if you can trigger the Super Senses. If you can get the Unimind in a position where he can't be seen by other outwits, you can perplex up his defense and possibly have a chance with like a 20 but you're talking about a 20 defense against a 14 attack if we're at peak. So, right, you still have to survive the onslaught is the key. One of the tricks Unimind has is possibly getting into line of fire of the Vulture and outwitting his charge. We're fine. Only problem with that, of course, is that you've still given him Giant Reach with Flurry. You've still got to deal with possible 9 squares of TK if somebody was clever enough to bring in Jean Grey, who will TK 6, sidestep forward, get you that last 3 squares, and then the Giant Reach just might be enough because you got to be 10 squares away on the Unimind. It's a hard situation, but the Unimind is tough enough, and it's one of the hard answers for the team. Generally, just not dying. In addition to the solo Unimind on his own, Unimind is often on a lower dial and flanked by a puppy. That puppy being Lockjaw. That's right. Lockjaw is a problem for the Vulture. Because even if the Vulture takes the last token off of Lockjaw, Lockjaw is KOing himself, the Vulture is not KOing the Lockjaw. Just because of this, if we look at the wording here, the will of the guide, Lockjaw starts the game with 6 Infinity tokens. When Lockjaw would take damage, instead remove an Infinity token. When he has no Infinity tokens, he is KO'd. So it's that effect that's KOing him, not the actual attack. So they can't launch another attack after killing Lockjaw. So even if they get to that point with Lockjaw, he's a good doggy. He's a good dog. In addition to which, he adds some extra power selectability, and like Lockjaw is a good solid choice for survivability. Generally, just characters who have a hard time dying are actually not ideal opponents for the Vulture. Another example would be the Daredevil, the new Earth X Daredevil. He's the easiest to kill, don't die character. Yeah, that's right. You heard me right on that one. Because something as small as a Starfight can potentially get the tokens off him, because you do not have to hit if you roll that 6, right? Excuse me. In addition, even with 2 attacks from the Vulture, you're not getting rid of all of those tokens because you need at least 3 different times of attacking the Daredevil. So the Daredevil is a hard target to kill with anything that's, again, hard to kill just with straight out attacks is a problem for the Vulture. Some people mention the Joker, but I mean the Joker is more avoidable in most cases because the Vulture ignores characters. Like I'm looking at putting together figures that are just hard to kill in general. So these are all things that are key to this kind of strategy. So don't die is another archetype that is very valid, or the one-man army / tent pole idea. It's very capable of stopping Vulture in his tracks and just kind of looking at that. Now the thing is, you still got to kill the rest of the team, right? If you kill the Vulture, you still got to kill 240 points. If it's a don't die tech, you just back off. You're gonna have a harder time killing you than them. You know, it's like you both have a harder time killing, but the don't die is a lot harder to kill, and as a result, you just kind of back off on it. You know what I mean? And look, guys, anybody who's going to complain about somebody backing off in the game, you got to be ready in competitive play to just lose that way. It's a way you can lose. Accept it. Accept it. All right. So what I was referring to was the monster / bystander swarm teams. So whoops, I did the wrong thing there. Sorry about that. Still new to OBS and still like clicking the wrong things. I gotta start setting up hotkeys, I think. Anyway, so there are dudes who make dudes, right? Who knew? Well, I did because I use them all the time. I am. It's a thing about me that people just kind of look at a certain team and they see that I've done oh my gosh, he's not on here. Okay. I've done certain things and they'll look at my team and go, yeah, that's a Jason team. And one of those things is built a ton of bystanders. Recently I've done it with Iron Man and Stegron as part of a scientist team. There is also Isaac. I believe is he in this? I don't know if they've listed him yet on the HC Realms. I'm way out of line. M19. Okay, I can't find him. I tried. Anyway, Isaac is capable of making character tokens. Groot is capable of making tokens. All of these are dudes that make dudes. And dudes that make dudes are cool, and if they're super potent, even better. Like, for instance, Iron Man, as a figure himself, he's unassuming. You look at it and go, oh, that's not the worst thing in the world. But a couple things to remember is when you get past those first 2 clicks, he's a behemoth of a fighter. In addition to which, if I knock 5 points on top of him and make a team that's capable of winning map rolls, I'm actually going to be playing on Stark Towers, which creates a different way of creating his tokens. There's Isaac. I'm going to add him to the team. There we go. He's not actually, this isn't a team. These are just figures we're talking about, right? Anyway, so what ends up happening is you make these cute little tokens, Monolith, Steelbow, Sting, and then with the map, you also get access to Tank, Crimson Sage, and what was the other one? I can't remember, but he's got hypersonic. They all represent different Avengers in robot form, in Pog form. The Avengers are bad guys in Pog form. So Sting is a running shot Psychic Blaster. Monolith is a giant reach, close combat expert dude. Sting is Steelbow is range combat expert or an energy explosion, depending on what you need at the time. The map itself, the Stark Towers map, ends up putting them in random places between 1 and 6, and their actual existence is based on your dice roll. So if you roll a die roll and one of the characters corresponding with that die roll is already out, you're kind of out of luck. But you'll end up putting a character on a square with that number on it. And sometimes you'll get forward positioning. And what's more is if you look at the stats on these guys, like Steelbow that's a 0-point character who's actually doing the starting line of a 50-point character. Same with Monolith. He's the starting line of a 50, 60-point character. Sting is a starting line of a 45-point character. Tank is a starting line of some 100-point characters. He's got Charge, Super Strength, Invulnerable, or Impervious. Crimson Sage is a character you're usually paying some points for prob, and then you got a Hypersonic Precision Striker with Super Senses in the other one, whose name I keep forgetting. Because he's the one I've made the least of, would you believe me? So long and short of it is these POG teams are cool, but they have such a losing rate against the Vulture. They're almost not worth it in some cases. And just to mention, Isaac, he makes 3 little dudes who are also, oh my god, so strong. They're so strong. Especially the Chaos. There's 3 of them. And let's see if I can't find them. Chaos, like I said, Chaos is one of them. Here we go. Lord Gaia. Like, look at that dial. That's a 0-point pog. All it takes is a power action to get out. Stellar Axe. And then Chaos. Like, who doesn't want that dial? You know what I mean? Look at those stats. And these are all coming out of a very low-end 50-point character. Not hard to kill, but he does have a stop click. So deal with that, Vulture. And what's more is if you put him on a stop click, all you've done is given him all of the pogs. So, oh boy. All right. So anyway, this archetype's kind of been edged out. Now, that said, if I look forward to the future, I wanted to say the X-Men team sort of... Whoops, I gotta stop doing that. The X-Men team kind of looks good again. But then the Vulture does what Vultures do and kind of runs roughshod over that team. Because even though the Wolverine can survive the first attack from Vulture, he can't survive the second attack. Because you hit him to stop, okay, and you don't even have to perplex up damage in this case. You just perplex up movement and attack, and you flurry him. You kill the Wolverines, you kill the Moira McTaggarts, you charge until you're blue in the face. Like, once you've gotten past all the Wolverines, you can start killing Moiras one at a time, or in a single flurry, kill both Moiras. You do have to get your stats up on attack up pretty high because there's so many perplexes coming from the team. But I think the Vulture is still too much of a threat to that team to make it viable again, which is a shame. The Cosmic team is still viable against this strategy, but if you do play Groot with it, you have to be super careful and aware of where you're putting your bystander tokens. In the current iteration, they're able to run the Joker's gas canister, which nullifies your shape change, and just the defense on the Walking Woods is already basically worthless. So anyway, I know I'm sounding like a negative Nancy right now. We're not lost yet. There are a number of tentpoles and there are a number of one-man armies that are capable of surviving the Vulture onslaught, and they're starting to look appealing to me. I'm a bad man. Bad man. Yeah, I know. I usually play a Swarm team, Jason. What's up with that? I'm just switching up strategies. It's time for me to kind of rethink and readapt. There are a few other archetypes that exist. Devin, local player, created this weird thing that uses the Wasp part of the Avengers with Surtur, changes his size, baits out an attack with the Daredevil, and then retaliates at normal size with Surtur for like 15 attack and 6 damage, ignoring your defense powers, and then repeats the process because he's normal size, and it's not a retaliation, it's an actual attack, and he can attack anybody he feels like. And that's a cool strategy. It's just, it feels like a lighter version of the Vulture version thing, right? It has this map roll. I mean, it's a good team. Devin won New York States with it. It's good. It's not going to take away from that. So that's another archetype that exists. But that's more of a baited Alpha Strike to a certain degree. Because an Alpha Strike is you go everything
in your face, and I explode. And if anything is still kind of there, I might have a bad day. But generally, on an Alpha Strike, you expend all your resources into one thing, and it's like your big Kamehameha beam. You throw, like one of the originals was Big Bertha or Ghost Rider, and just one big thing goes. It's in your opponent's face, and it attacks. And sometimes it attacks more than once, and sometimes each of those attacks does a ton of damage. But if anything survives that, you're kind of toast. And the Vulture is a light version of this because the Vulture is only 60 points to your team. If he can score his own points, which, let's not kid ourselves, is not a hard task. The rest, if you're playing the Al Jordan Star Fox version, you still got lots of beef on your team to go. So do not panic in that case. So one-man armies that have shown up: Black Panther, Unimind, all very valid possible strategies. One thing to note is that the Vulture himself doesn't outright defeat the Black Panther. I think after the first flurry, you end up on the stop clicks, which is fine because you're now about to go toe to toe with the Vulture, but you also have a little bit of backup with some zombies. Let me just double check, make sure I'm not talking out of my butthole. That was from Secret Wars Battle World. This is a one-man army. And I'm talking, when I say these one-man armies, these are proven, have done well strategies in some environment. So this Black Panther, as you see, you can get through this dial. So if you deal 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, well, you're here. If I don't roll my shape change, assuming current meta, Joker's gas canister. If not current meta, then I might survive. But then you get to the stop click here, and now his attack is stopped, and you have created the zombie warriors, who have Battle Fury, Incapacitate, Sidestep, and are very capable of saying, hold on a second, I'm going to hold you here. Let's incapacitate you, keep you down. And Black Panther, what are you going to do? Black Panther is going to use Flurry. Maybe his blades, maybe not, and attack back. And he's got Charge Flurry. He's also traded with Shape Change. We cannot forget that he's not Shape Change, Super Senses. So even if that first attack hits, the first click that you've got there, you see, you've got Impervious, you've got Super Senses, and you've got Prob. So things can go in Black Panther's favor in a lot of different ways. Now, granted, Prob is probably just like isn't it cool that I have Prob? It is what it is. Anyway, so these are one-man armies are viable, guys. Accept it and be happy about that, because to be brutally honest, for a period of time, the idea of how effective a lot of these POG teams have scared off one-man armies, because the overwhelming number of attacks that are coming from these swarm teams tends to scare these teams off. And I have to accept that this particular strategy that I've been playing is going to be on pause for now. And this is the state of this is kind of the thing that happens in the Heroclix metagame. Is archetypes kind of come and go, and they tend to either sit in the back end until a version of it is acceptable, or it festers and exists for a period of time, surprises people, and then disappears into the dust, or it dominates. It's just the nature of this game in particular. So don't get down if you're like me, and you've been playing in the metagame for a while. You want to avoid getting in your own head that a strategy that you're comfortable with, a strategy you play a lot, just isn't effective for the next couple months. It happens. We start entering the rock paper scissors arms race to be able to win against other teams and still be an effective team on its own. So brace yourselves. It's going to be a little tough. We have to deal with, and these are just the two most dominant, I think, archetypes that are out there. Three. Hard to kill cosmic, speed bag teams, and one-man armies. Ask me a month ago if I thought one-man armies would ever be viable in this game again. And I'd laugh at me or you for even having the conversation. Now, conversation is very valid. Okay, so what have I been thinking of in this environment? That's where the long walk to where we were going is. So I have been toying with the idea of a very solid tentpole, making a theme team, and then I ended up getting a little advice from one Mr. PJ Bolin. And he suggested I take one direction that I was going to go and change it a little. We're having fun here, guys. We're going to have some fun. While at the same time, this all started as kind of a, I'm going to play a tent pole. And then I started looking and going, yeah, I might play a tent pole. Now, I'm not unfamiliar with the strategy itself. One year at Worlds, the year at Worlds where I placed in the top 32, I did run Jakeem Thunder, which is, pretty close to half my team, along with a Goblin King, which was pretty much the brunt of my team, along with some ID cards, a couple Colossus Retaliators, and a Pim Tank. Everybody's playing Pim Tank. Don't judge me. But then I started kind of poking a bear with a figure and started really falling in love with some ideas. And I think it's ready. Are you ready? Okay. So I talked to PJ about this, and he said, change this one thing into two of this thing. And I was like, he's not kidding. This might work. Meet Black Adam and the boys. Now, those of you familiar with, with Ring of Honor, they're familiar with Dalton Castle and his boys. Well, this is Black Adam and the boys. The idea here, you see we got one 40-point Black Adam, two 20-point Black Adam, one 40-point Billy Batson, two 20-point Billy Batsons, and a 200-point Black Adam. So this is really a Black Adam team, let's not kid ourselves. But it does have a trick in its sleeve. So let's look at this. The first thing I want to talk about is Billy Batson. And you're like, Jason, you just said things that just died a Vulture are problematic for you. Billy Batson does not just die to Vulture. Thank you very much. The 20-point, let's talk about the 20-point version. Okay? 3 clicks of health. Not much. Dies to an unmodified Vulture, right? He's got Perplex. Probably going to be targeting the Black Adam with it because that's the big investment we want to protect on the team. But here's the thing. Billy has a stop click on the last click. So the 20-point version has a stop click, which means the Vulture is required to commit both attacks to a Billy Batson to kill him. That's point number 1. Point number 2, the second attempt has very high chance of failure given that it has shape change. Okay, it doesn't have a high. It's got a 1 in 3. It's got a 1 in 3 chance of complete failure to even start because it's going to have shape change. And what's more is if he hasn't damaged another Billy Batson, the best he's going to do is damage 2 of them and be stuck in the middle of 3 Billy Batsons and a Black Adam. Now, granted, 2 of them aren't going to seem too good, but there's a reason that they're still around and I'll care about them. So, we've done this. Now, let's say, for argument's sake, he's attacked our 40-point version. Well, he hits him the first time. Let's say he does get to that stop click. Well, you don't KO him. Instead, you remove him. Actually, I think it was after resolution. So if the 40-point one survives the Vulture Onslaught, you pop him off the board, and now you got a Shazam, who's a 100-point character. And he can't attack the Shazam. He's got to try to finish this Billy Batson or attack another Billy Batson, assuming I haven't run the shape change. There's a lot of if, ands, or buts. I'm not going to lie. So maybe I've lost 40 points. He still hasn't made up his point values on his Vulture. Okay? So, here we go. He's attacked some Billy Batsons, and he either hasn't killed one, or has killed one, moves to another. Let's say he kills them all. Even then, the Black Adam will survive. Because if he's killed all the Billy Batsons, he's not banking any charges. He is using the next charge to kill the next Billy Batson, using the next charge to kill the next Billy Batson. Now, mathematically, one of those Billy Batsons should have survived. Mathematically. But you need a test case of 3,000 to prove that 1,000 of them will succeed. So in a test case of 3, sometimes it wins, sometimes it don't. Whatever. He kills all Billy Batsons. Well, and then he moves on to Black Adam. Now, let's say he does get both hits on the Black Adam. Black Adam's still alive. Because even at peak damage on the Vulture, Black Adam starts with Invincible, and he's Quintessence. So anybody who thinks he's going to be outwitting, you're fooling yourself. Sit down. Let me keep talking. What's more is if he hits them the first time, the best we can take is 3 damage. And on 3 damage on the 200-point Black Adam, I'm still on an Invincible. And if I take 3 more damage, I'm moving to Flurry with Steel Energy. I am still alive. So I can survive this onslaught. It's not perfect. No just survival against the Vulture is perfect. But what's more is Black Adam is Mystics. So you've now taken 2 damage, Vulture. Problem, of course, is that the Vulture is going to be on Close Combat Expert, and there's a lot of nightmare. It's not ideal. None of this is ideal. But it's not easy for the Vulture to walk through this team. The Vulture does have to put in a lot of work, and he has to commit to each Billy Batson as he goes. What's even more exciting, I didn't catch this until late, and I don't know if PJ caught this when he suggested this to me. Black Adam's keywords include Injustice Society, Justice Society, Mystical Ruler, Secret Society of Supervillains, and Warrior. Notice I was quizzical about something? Wait a second. Isn't Shazam part of the Justice Society? Yes, he is. What's more, his little boy counterpart is also Justice Society. This is a 4-figure theme team, which means they got 4 theme props. Now you'll see I left 20 points open. It's ID card time, guys. Because if the Vulture is in the state that he's in, I might not want to commit to an attack with the Black Adam. That might be bad news for me. Okay? So if that's the case, then we got to start looking at what our options are as far as ID cards are concerned. Now, I haven't made a final decision on it. Got to say that. But what I do want to balance is between 100 and 200 points of ID card call-ins as options, because Black Adam can do some calling in, but if the 40-point Billy Batson survives the attack, the onslaught of his own thing, then we have another 100-point character for all purposes and effects, also on the board, also with some natural prop. So 100-point character capable of calling in, who's probably going to be, I'm probably going to just say, immune to opposing outwit unless they lack any outwit, in which case opposing prob's probably going to be my no power. Like, I gotta say, my mind blew up. At first my mind was blown. It's like, why am I playing so many Billy Batsons? And then, my mind kind of settled on, well, that is a lot of perplex. And then my mind settled on, hold on, why is Black Adam Justice Society? And my jaw dropped, and I was kind of in that position. So right now, this is what I like to call the team that's going to the Friar. This is the team I'm going to test against Vultures. I'm going to test it against Don't Die. I'm going to see how it runs. I'm going to see how it works. I'm going to see if it does what I wanted to do in this environment. PJ Bolin deserves a lot of credit because originally I was just going to go Black Adam, Billy Batson, and Satana with 2 ID cards. And that was a mystical theme team. Although I think that actually might have been a Justice League theme team. No, it was a mystical theme team because I don't have Justice League on Black Adam, and Zatanna is a mystical Justice League. This is the one from the Batman animated, by the way, before people ask questions. I was going to play it at 50 points. So I'm going to pull her up just quickly to see. Yeah, she would fit into a mystical theme team, so I'd win map rolls against Vultures for the most part. But she'd have a harder time just being where she needed to be. So ultimately, I'm going to settle on the version that PJ has hooked me up with and kind of go from there. So that's kind of my musings of madness for today. We're back to the swing of things, which is exciting. It's always good news. We're gonna do this I'm going to try to do this every other week that we don't have Married Lab. So next week will be Married Lab. I won't do this. I'm going to do that on the other week. I will, for those of you interested, Everyman for Everyone as a show is going to go on a little bit of a hiatus until the release of Black Panther and the Illuminati, and until any other Everyman for Everyone results come in. I will try to maintain updating on the document. So keep your eyes on that. That's at marriedwithclicksbattlereport.wordpress.com, and just click on the Everyman Project link, and that has all the rules and the legal figures for that. So we're back in action. We're into the Mind of Madness. And that was just my crazy talk for today. We'll see you guys in the next time as we dive deeper into this crazy old thing. Good night, everybody.